every story has a happy ever after.
Amanda, push the button.
Push.
Spoiler alert.
We're just cutting right into this one. There's too much to talk about. Can't really waste enough time. And we're also not doing a normal recap of the episode. We'll do a short one.
Yep.
At some point. I'll need your help with that. But this episode of Once Upon a Time is one of the most important ones of the whole season, if not one of the most important episodes of the whole series. First of all, from this point out, the flashback function changes.
Okay.
The flashbacks from this point out, even though all of them have exposition in them, it goes from being a means of telling a mirrored story in the show to explaining why people are the way they are.
Okay.
That's what they primarily become. It's not like this cute little, like, 2 stories for the price of 1 anymore. Okay. It's all like, why you be like this.
Yeah, kind of like we were talking about before. I think the showrunners, as it's going on, did figure out what this show should be, as opposed to what it started out being, which is that mirror storytelling. And they're like, we're not very good at this, so maybe we should try something completely different.
And what are they trying?
Trying to explain why people are the way they are.
Why you be like this.
Putting, not really in this episode, but later on, putting fun twists and turns, kind of like I loved with the Jiminy Cricket episode. It was one of the things I really liked about these first, I think, 7 episodes. 7 episodes, yeah. It was one of the things I liked was a twist that wasn't because feminism. It was something a little bit darker, a little bit edgier. We're getting some more yucks. We're getting Mary Margaret being a little sassy, which is fun.
Not so much this episode, but in the next episode, oh yeah, it's like, she brings the pot.
She called her daughter a hoe in this one.
She doesn't know she's her daughter, but she called her a hoe.
She straight up called her a hoe.
So that's one of the reasons why this episode is important. In our missing episode, which, you know, legally I can't say that the mouse stole it.
The mouse stole it.
But I'm blaming it on the mouse.
The mouse stole it.
Don't listen to what the mouse tells you.
The mouse sees all. The mouse knows all.
It knows how you like your hot chocolate.
But I love Disney, and Disney is just really... Where would we be without Disney?
Probably more severely depressed than we already are, and a slightly worse economy.
Maybe we should close the door so that Hypnotoad can go away.
Wow. Okay, so regarding the missing episode, 2 really big things happen in it without going into it the whole way. But in that episode 5...
Yeah.
Regina starts interfering with the lives of people that aren't just Emma and Henry. And we also see Regina pick up a shard and discard it that we later discover is part of Snow White's tomb.
Yep.
So the connection between the fairy tale world and Storybrooke in that episode really started chipping away.
The veil is lifting.
The veil... you know, the ugly bride beneath, can see.
Also, the missing thing from that episode, Giancarlo Esposito. Dennis keeps on telling me, when are you going to mention it on the podcast? And I said, it's on the missing episode now.
I know.
Giancarlo Esposito.
He deserves it.
He's
better.
In this one, so I can say it.
Yeah.
But...
He deserves better.
I got his name wrong, like, forever ago. And now I'm getting it right. I'm sorry.
Dennis was the only one who corrected us, and everybody else who's been listening, thank you for not being dickbags. So...
I got raspberry lime water.
I got coffee, and I got the rest of my French press with me. My 4-cup French press. I am loaded and ready to go. So, I bring that up because this episode takes those 2 elements of... connecting the worlds and Regina interfering in people's lives to a whole new extreme. In this episode, we not only see how strongly connected these 2 worlds are to the point where we can't look at these as 2 separate things anymore. You know, before, we were able to say, okay, Emma and Henry would seem batshit nuts if it wasn't for the flashbacks. As of this point... it's canon.
Yeah, now we know it's true.
We know it's true. We know it's canon. And guys, most importantly, Regina kills somebody in this episode.
She don't murder him.
Which brings us to my new segment. It is Regina's Morality Tally Chart. I'll come up with a better song at some point.
I wish I had an audio for the look I'm giving that chart right now.
Everybody can feel your eye rolls through the audio. That's how powerful they are.
Yeah, they are very strong.
So we've mentioned this a couple of times. One of the things that Once Upon a Time loves to do is debate the morality of Regina.
Yep.
So, in all fairness, the first 6 episodes, I'm leaving this completely blank.
Because Regina's right all of the time.
Because in Storybrooke, up until this point, she's sort of been in this little middle chart right here. On the morality tally chart, I have 3 sections. On the far left, that's nice. Regina does something nice. In the middle, moral ambiguity is hard. Something that the show tries to suggest, but, you know, it's pop TV.
Yep.
And on the far right, we have that's evil. So, as of right now, I think it's only fair because, again, this is the first time we've had definitive proof of these two worlds coexisting, and Regina does something in Storybrooke that is definitively evil.
Evil.
Everything else has sort of been like a fair abuse of power.
Yeah, I mean, abusive.
Very abusive. She's sort of been stuck in this gray area, and you know what? I'm not gonna count it. Because she's basically been in the gray area for so long, she's had a clean slate up until this point.
Yeah, she's been hovering around moral ambiguity for a while.
Yeah.
But she straight up murders someone in this episode.
So, Regina now has 1 tally, and that's evil. At the end of the season, I'll try to combine everything and come up with some sort of average.
I can't wait till we're done with the entire show and figure out how evil Regina is.
Yes. And I'm also going to say this right here and now. I'm not doing this for any other character besides Regina, because hers is the one that's contested the most. Rumpelstiltskin
lives in a morally
he's chaotic neutral.
Yeah, he lives in moral ambiguity.
Sometimes they try making him sympathetic or not sympathetic, but it's more along the lines of him learning how to control his power lust.
Yeah. It's him trying to... Well, we'll talk about it more. It's when we have a Rumpelstiltskin episode.
When we have the Rumpelstiltskin... I'm broken.
Yep. Hold on. Get the comb out of your hair. Okay.
I was wondering where that went. But yes, when we talk about the Rumpelstiltskin episode, we'll go more into that. But for right now...
1 for evil.
1 for evil. So... It's probably easier to talk about what happens in the fairy tale world first. Because, again, it's not really a mirrored story as much as it is exposition. And it's basically the first half of Snow White, if you're familiar with the original story, where the evil queen sets out a huntsman to kill Snow White. He cannot bear himself to do it. In the show, he brings her the heart of a stag. In the original story, he kills a wild boar. But instead of, just killing him, the evil queen decides to remove his heart from his body.
And make him a sex toy.
Make him a sex slave, which, here's the thing. With Regina's morality tally chart, I am keeping it to present day.
Okay.
So everything that's happened in the flashbacks, that's a mulligan.
Okay.
From Storybrooke onward.
Because really, where they're playing with most of her is Storybrooke.
Yes. That being said, this episode, the flashback ends with her putting the huntsman's heart in her collection of hearts, owning him, mind, body, soul, and forcing her guards to put him into her bedchambers. Rape ain't cool. And I know that I literally just constructed it now, and I'd hate to be breaking my own rules, but I am tempted to put a that's evil mark for rape.
Well, here's the thing. You could, because in modern day Storybrooke, she owns his heart. Mm-hmm. So it's his... It's... Blah, blah, blah.
You're doing it too. We're both
So
broken.
In modern day Storybrooke, it's just as non-consensual as it is in Fairy Tale Land.
Okay, that's it.
Ha!
Regina has 2 marks.
We got a second mark. I made an argument, and she fell for it.
Well, I didn't fall for it. I really wanted to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was consensual.
You had your pen in hand. You were like, I need to do this.
It felt wrong not to, especially because there's a lot of people who would view something like that and go like, oh, that's hot. I'd let the queen do that to me. And it's like, no, the whole point is that he's not letting her do it.
I mean, Lana Prilla is hot, except for those weird antenna things she has. God.
All of her outfits in this episode are great if you're looking for her chest line down.
Yeah, she got they did something in costume design from like here on that's completely different from the first couple of episodes. It's like someone new came in. Mm-hmm. But the first time I watched the scene where the huntsman comes back and she rips out his heart, she has fantastic hair and great cleavage and décolletage. But she has these 2 little wires, like think 90s tendrils of hair right on her forehead. Mm-hmm. It almost resembles an upside down heart, which is what I think they were going for in this.
But the shape.
And it just looks oily and weird.
You know what?
And I don't.
You know what I'm going to call it? I can't believe it's not bangs.
It's not bangs. It's just tendrils. And I love Lana Parrilla. Mm-hmm. I think we've said it enough, but I wanted to tell you the one thing that I found out about her is that I started following her on Instagram.
Yep.
She has a senior dog named Lola.
Oh.
She is 12 years old.
Oh.
And she shares pictures of her dog frequently. And I'm like, oh my god, I love her so much more now.
I do too.
If you want to worm your way into my heart, own a senior dog and post pictures of it, because I love the little bird. I know, it's so dumb, but it made me so happy when I found that.
We have a senior dog, in the room next door. Bam.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a good boy. He's just a grouchy old man, and he yells at all the kids. There's like a baby that walks by the street all the time, and the baby...
just a sassy, 3-month-old, strutting down the street.
Like, in the stroller.
Gaga. Oh, in a stroller.
Goo, gaga, ga. Goo, ga.
No.
I hate me. But,
Baby Gaga.
Baby Gaga. And, yeah, Bam hates that fucking baby.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he hates me whenever I walk in the front door, and then he
hates everybody.
He does an old sniffy sniff, and he's like, "Oh, you! I've known you for 10 years."
Exactly. Well, Lana Parrilla, and this is something really important to point out too. Is like
to point out.
This is really important to point out. You can't
enunciate your words.
I love Lana Parrilla when she is evil. I know that I just created this morality chart to judge the show on how they judge her, but when she is allowed to be evil for no reason other than she's an evil queen, that is when the show is at its best.
She's one of the 2 people that I'm never upset to see her on screen. The other one is Robert Carlyle. Mm-hmm. There are some characters that when they show up, it feels like, oh, these next 5 minutes are going to be a chore. But,
and we'll get into that the next episode.
When Lana Parrilla or Robert Carlyle show up as any character in any iteration so far that I have seen, I'm never like, ugh. I'm always like, oh, yay, another scene with them. That'll be fun.
So yeah, that's the fairy tale land thing. You probably picked up on the fact that we just call the huntsman, and that's because in the fairy tale world, that's the only name he has. In Storybrooke, his name is Graham
Gray.
Humbert.
Christian Grey?
Yes.
Yeah.
Daddy Gray.
Humbert?
Humbert, yes. The character's full name is Graham Humbert. Humbert, and I looked this up. There's nothing too significant about the name Graham, and I honestly think that they just gave that to him because it sounds similar to Grimm.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea.
And Humbert is derived from kind of like a mixture of Scottish and English tradition, meaning bright warrior.
Okay.
So the writers leave a lot of little breadcrumbs for you to look this shit up. Mm-hmm. And it's nice because, in the fairy tale world, he did do the honorable thing by not killing Snow White. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't like her as Mary Margaret, so we would be fine with her getting bludgeoned.
Yeah, pretty much.
She's not the best as Snow White, but I will say that her as Snow White is much more tolerable than Mary Margaret. Having seen the show before.
I don't know. I have no great like for her either way, but...
Yeah, when I say that, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but from this point out, and you kind of put it a little bit better than I did, that the plot takes a back seat. Or sorry, the logic takes a back seat to the plot.
The needs of the plot outweigh the needs of the logic.
Yes. And, you know, a couple of times before, we could be, like, a little bit nitpicky about things that happen in Storybrooke. But this episode and the next episode in the Storybrooke portions, things happen that are so contrived that you just kind of give up and say, sure, why not?
Yeah, especially in Storybrooke.
So in this episode, the thing that kicks everything off is Daddy Graham gets really drunk and kisses Emma. Up until this point, they have had no romantic chemistry. The most interaction that they had with each other, besides, like, finding David in the woods, is him sneaking out of Regina's house.
Yeah, there was some chemistry there. I think there was supposed to be some chemistry there.
If there was supposed to be chemistry there...
Just because she was mad about it. That it kind of reeked like jealousy a little bit.
But she wasn't mad about him sleeping with Regina because she wanted him. It was more at, like, you did this while Henry was sleeping.
Yeah.
That's where the anger came from. It wasn't like, oh, I wanted the D so bad and, you know, Regina has it. That's not it. Yeah. Or if that's what the show was going for, then it was very poorly communicated.
I think that's what it was going for. Having rewatched it a couple of times, I think they were trying to do some stuff like that, but...
Yeah, because for me to say this was out of character for him to do that would imply that he had character.
Also, they have some kind of banter, like, every now and then, like, barely, but they'll have, like, a little bit of repartee.
I always took that as more like...
repartee.
It comes across as more buddy cop than romantic comedy.
Yeah, it comes across as more buddy cop, because I don't think Jamie Dornan has sexual chemistry on screen. See
No.
50 Shades of Grey?
No.
But he comes across as more, like, confused and bewildered than bona fide.
And this episode kind of does get that point across, where he says, like, I just want to feel something.
Yeah.
Now... Again, if we were just going by metaphorical language and keeping everything separate, yeah, people feeling kind of dead inside from going nowhere relationships. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll kiss your coworker just to feel something instead of your boss lady.
I've never been there.
I've never been there either. It's, but you've known people who've done stuff like that,
No.
Like you've never met people who've been like you don't understand why they bone each other, but it's more or less out of convenience.
Maybe I have been that person. Shit.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be the mirror of self-reflection there.
Damn it.
Oh fuck, that's a point off of my morality tally chart.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
hers is
my morality.
Oh, that's nice. Moral ambiguity and stop being such a bitch.
Instead of that's evil, it's just stop being such a bitch.
Yeah. I got some points on that tally chart too.
Yeah.
But, you know, we don't. The true definition of friendship is not counting that on the tally chart.
Here's the thing, though. We don't have a tally chart for our bitchiness. We have a gradient.
Yeah, it's shades of gradient.
Shades of gradient.
More than 50, I think.
Pfft.
But
so
what else happens in this episode?
Okay, so we already explained that Regina has a collection of hearts in the fairy tale world.
She's the Queen of Hearts. She's
is.
not the Queen of Hearts.
Fuck, do we have to talk about that too after season 7?
Yeah, we do eventually have to talk about that.
Well, you know what? That's a pin we're not taking out for a long time.
Oh no, that pin's gonna sit there for another couple of weeks.
No, not weeks, like...
No, it's later.
years.
It's later
Yeah.
this season. Later this season. Kinda.
Fuck.
Sorta.
So, I was actually talking about the Wonderland spin-off episodes.
Oh yeah! I forgot.
That's what I was talking about.
Once upon a time in Wonderland or whatever.
Yeah, so that pin, that's gonna sit there.
And it's gonna like it.
Yeah. So...
See, here's the problem with doing that, though. That's like...
It's one season.
It's like personal to me.
It's personal to me, too.
It's gonna make me feel and probably angry.
I know.
Oh,
So
God.
this is why we're doing this, because it's cathartic. We'll get through this together.
Well, I know what this is, and I'm going to tell you at the end of this what I have a growing affection for this show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to enjoy watching it more and more, and I realized exactly what it is, but I figure I'm going to save that for the sum up.
Okay.
Because I figured it might be a nice bow on everything.
Okay. So, Regina kind of finds out about it.
Yeah, because he goes and starts making out with her.
Yeah.
He immediately goes, and then he's like, I have a dream about Wolf.
Yeah.
A good puppo.
That's the other thing, too, that this episode was kind of cool about, is there's mysticism happening. Cool mysticism things that aren't related to the curse.
Mm-hmm. And unlike Harrison Ford, it's a real dog. We got topical humor.
Ugh. If I can remember the name of the Disney Plus thing, I'll let you know what it is, because apparently it was really good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Puppers.
Yeah,
Puppers
good
happens.
puppo.
Puppers happens. Sheriff Graham gets visited by wolves in his dreams and in Storybrooke.
Yeah, he has like weird flashes back of dreams.
In the fairy tale world, not that it was incredibly important for that section of it, it was more important for Storybrooke. He was raised by wolves. The huntsman was raised by wolves.
And he apologized to deers when he kills them.
Like a good sacrifice.
And 3 times in this episode, he has a single tear roll down his right cheek. And it's just very photogenic. And the one is killing the deer.
Yeah.
Well, the
Killing
second
the
one
deer,
was...
when he
reading
reads
the
the letter
letter,
to Snow White.
And then at the spoilery end.
Yeah, at the spoilery end.
The delicious spoilery.
That.
Yep.
So, he keeps on seeing dogs.
And he runs into Rumple in the woods, though that barely matters. I just figured I'd mention it because there was a Robert Carlyle sighting.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Who was gardening with, like, a huge-ass shovel. I'm like, who are you burying in those woods?
Well, not only the huge-ass shovel, but also that apron.
Yeah, he has, like, a butcher apron and a big shovel in the middle of the woods, and he's like, Jamie Dornan's like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, just some light gardening.
Light gardening.
Like, who are you planting in these woods?
Probably not.
No. He was KO'd before Storybrooke was even a thing.
I know, and it's great.
And that was the other thing. Dennis was like, how does death work? I think Dennis asked this, or I asked this to the universe. Like, how does death work in this? Or if they're dead in Storybrooke, are they dead for, like, forever? And I'm like,
So here's the thing, the show doesn't care.
Yeah.
Which, again, I cannot emphasize how important
Yeah.
this episode is. Not just in terms of the plot, but in how I'm going to evaluate the show.
Yeah.
From here on out. Because once Regina kind of like catches on that he's not really as affectionate or obedient towards her anymore,
that into her.
And he's starting to have memories come back to him, there's a part of his dream where he sees a symbol and it happens to be above Regina's family mausoleum. Mm-hmm. So him and Emma go there, and Regina's like, the fuck are you doing at my father's grave?
Well, he starts digging around the mausoleum. He's like, there's gotta be a lever, or
the door somewhere.
or a door, or secret hiding, and Emma's like, you have lost your goddamn mind. Because he visited Henry, and Henry read him his bit of the book.
Yeah.
Once again, feeding into delusions.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. Whatever.
Yes.
Apparently we have to have Henry in this episode, so, because they still think he's a main character. But...
Yikes.
God. Yeah, so they kind of just force him in. But he's trying to find a lever or something to find where Regina's keeping his heart. Or to try to find something, because the wolf wants him to go in there. And Regina's like, "Da fuck.
You're at my father's grave." And they're like, "The fuck are you doing here?"
And she's like, "It's my father's grave."
So, drama happens. Graham breaks up with her. Emma suddenly starts acting like the voice of reason, which I really don't like, because what she's saying is technically true. Mm-hmm. But coming from Emma...
But it's also kind of wrong. Because
Yeah.
Regina's like, everyone has started leaving me since you got here.
Which is true.
And she's like, well, why don't you think about what's wrong with you that everyone's running away from you? Be like, well, they weren't running away from you before you showed up, you cow.
Well, Henry did.
Yeah, Henry did.
He did, but to compare him to Graham is incorrect.
And then Regina does what I've been waiting a couple
What
episodes
everyone's
for.
been waiting for. Cat fight.
I mean, like, the saddest, shortest. They exchange a punch each.
Yes. You know
Well,
what?
I think
Good punches.
I think Regina punches her, and I think Emma slaps her based on the sound effect.
No. The sound effect was wrong, but both of them threw punches
Oh, okay.
because she drew blood on Regina.
Okay.
You know, women
Maybe
slapping
she
each
turned
other.
her ring around and, like, slapped her. No, it was a punch.
Emma doesn't
It was
have a
punch.
ring.
You don't know that?
What did
The
she-
story doesn't care.
Did you just self-insert yourself as a ring?
No, I didn't insert myself anywhere. You can't prove anything. I didn't insert myself. Dang it. There's not, it's good, it's evil, and morally ambiguous. It's that's good, that's evil. What the fuck is Amanda talking about this time? It's in the middle.
So the fight breaks out. Graham and Emma leave, and Graham attends to Emma's wounds. And I'm going to say this out of order.
Okay.
As Graham is attending to Emma's wounds, he falls over, collapses, and dies. Amanda, why does this happen?
Okay, listen, kids. Here's the thing. Regina stays behind at the father's grave, and she goes in and puts flowers on top of the thing and pushes it out of the way like 120-pound maybe Lana Parrilla pushes a huge grave, like the huge stone mausoleum thing, out of the way, and goes down some hidden stairs and finds her heart P.O. box office. Which is what it looks like.
Heart depository.
Yeah, it looks like a heart safety deposit box, essentially. Yeah. And she crushes it into dust. And I was like, oh, good job, Jamie Dornan. If only you sneezed in the mausoleum, it would have shifted. Because it literally takes her no effort to just kind of push this thing aside. Like, she two-hands it, but she doesn't really put her back into it.
No, and it...
He could have tripped over something and bumped into it, and it probably would have shifted. Mm-hmm. And there was light coming from it. You couldn't see light from the... I have feelings about the needs of the plot outweigh the needs of the logic.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, sure. And what else do you have to say about this? Do you have feelings? Do you have thoughts? Do you have emotions?
I do have feelings, I do have thoughts, and I do have emotions. Like I said, Lana Parrilla in this show is at her best when she's allowed to just be evil and campy and have fun. In the Storybrooke world, we finally get to see her do something that connects the fairy tale world to Storybrooke, and she ends up killing somebody. I would like to say that this has heavy consequences in the long run of the series.
Yeah.
It does not.
Oh, okay.
Does
No.
anybody miss Sheriff Graham? You know what this episode does? Besides give us the foundation of debating Regina's morality and us, the audience, finally having concrete proof that everything that Henry believes is true. Mm-hmm. It gives us fodder for the next episode.
Yeah, and you do find out that she actually killed Snow White's father. That's the other thing that happens in this episode.
Oh,
adds to the moral ambiguity.
And you don't actually get the direct answer as to why Snow White ruined her life, but it can basically be summed up as snitches get stitches.
Yeah, basically.
And you know what? That's fine.
And Snow White knows why Regina hates her.
Yeah.
Or wants her dead, at least.
So we have a little bit more context there, but because it's not being over-explained or heavy-handed, I gotta say, I liked this episode. It's far from my favorite, but if you're talking about this episode in the context of the other ones we've watched,
yeah,
it's one of the best ones. If you're talking about it in the context of the rest of the series, I start to hate these choices more and more.
Yeah, I kind of feel neutral to positive about this episode. There's nothing I strongly dislike about it other than they felt the need to write Henry in. But like I said, I'm getting a growing affection for this show, and that's because the other day I had a shower thought.
Okay, what was your shower thought?
Which is, when I'm shampooing and conditioning my hair, I have deep thoughts. And I was having deep thoughts about this show.
I'm so sorry.
I usually come out and call my mom or ask Dennis a random question. But I had to ask myself this question, which is, why am I starting to like this show and enjoy watching it? Mm-hmm. And that is because I realized it is period TV.
Yes.
It is when it's like day 1 or day 2, when you're in pain on a couch and all you want is tea and comfort and a blanket and a cat. You can just sit there and put on some 0-calorie TV and just kind of drift away into a different world. It's essentially what Lifetime is for, like, my mom and occasionally me. You know, it's just, she's pouring the tea. The tea is being served right now.
Indeed.
But that's what it is, you know? It's just harmless, kind of pulpy fun. You don't have to ask too many questions about it. You don't need to question the logic of it, even though that's what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I like it.
Yeah, and I've said this before many times. We're going to occasionally call out things that are dumb.
Oh, yeah.
But we're primarily watching this and doing this because this show is a testament to the flexibility of adaptation.
Mm-hmm. And we're constantly on day 2 of our period.
All
and
the
just
time.
Need comfort and kind of like junk food TV.
Yeah, so with that in mind, this episode, I have no reservations giving 4 solid apples.
See, I feel like it could
would you give 4 with a bite?
I would give like 3.5 because I feel like it can get better. Mm-hmm. There's still not any... There was not enough Robert Carlyle for me to love this episode. I think that's just the truth. But I feel like 3.5 because I feel like the show can be tighter and do better. Like when we got some yucks last episode.
Yes.
I feel like it's starting to find what it is, but it's still not quite there yet. It hasn't realized what it is yet.
I think the reason why I'm ranking it so high is mostly because I've seen this show before, and I've seen a lot of the seasons, and as the show goes on, this is sort of like the barometer.
Okay.
You know, it's like, you can't have debates about whether or not Regina is good now because of this episode.
Yeah.
Or if you do, something really drastic has to happen. And to go back to other episodes where we'd be like, oh, Regina's just acting like a very concerned mother, even though she has a lot of power and has the ability to abuse it, she's doing it mostly because of her son.
Yeah.
We can't really view her through that same lens anymore.
Yeah, because she straight up murdered someone in cold blood.
Yeah, so the ranking of this has less to do with me liking it personally and more to do with
liking it in a larger context of the plot.
Well, actually disliking it in the larger context of the plot, because I will... This little tally mark right here is, like, murder and rape is kind of a huge deal.
Yeah.
And you can't... Like, that's the one thing with, like, mindless television, is it's really cool up until you have something like this happen, where once you start peeling away at that, sometimes it's more difficult to enjoy things. But fortunately, the next episode, I'm going to say with certainty, is probably one of my favorites of the season.
I'm so happy to talk about the next episode.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Okay, so we'll catch you guys around next time. Hopefully that gave you something to chew on. And you know what, folks? If you want to create your own Regina's morality tally chart at home and follow along with us, I'll probably post this on Facebook, Instagram,
Twitter.
We don't have a Twitter.
TikTok. Snapchat.
No.
What's the other one? Vine.
Vine's been dead, honey.
AIM. Yeah. Yahoo Messenger. What was that one where you had the little animated avatars?
Was that IMVU?
Yeah!
Neopets, baby.
Yeah!
Find us on there.
On Neopets on Pokemon's Go.
But no, I'll post that so you fine folks can follow along with us. I think that's just, that'll be fun. That's like a nice little bonding thing we can do with everybody.
Yeah!
Okay.
We can bond with you, you can bond with us, we can bond together. Giggity.
Goo goo goo. All right. Till next time. Might not be the end.
It might not be happy.
But you are always welcome to this party. Take care.
Do, 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 do.